obviously are accessible, and you can do it in the field, but again, remember, the configuration ID 1 and 2 basically represents the ID or the identity of the unit. As you begin to change options and or add options in, program parameters have to be changed, obviously, okay? So, in this particular case, this is just kind of a reiteration of what we've talked about, okay? Again, the identity of the unit. We're talking about, again, we're kind of rehashing things we already talked about, implementing this jumper wire to put the unit into occupancy, okay? Note, the economizer must have an occupied signal from the M3 controller. If a thermostat is being used and there is no wire landed on occupied terminal on the board, you will need to add a field install jumper, 24 volts to the OCP terminal, okay? Now,
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt that question for that last one. So you're saying if it's operated off of a thermostat, it has to have that jumper on there?
no, if, the idea is that if you are using a non-commercial grade thermostat that does not have an EC or occupancy, then you have to put that jumper in place.
Gotcha, okay.
So when they field install, say, whatever their thermostats, that they should have a line coming from there to whatever, say, our BMS or thermostat, right?
Correct.
Okay, so.
Or, and let me kind of clarify a couple things. And I'm sure that the other gentleman will come on at 2:30 probably maybe will clarify this, but he also may have the ability through your front end to put the unit in and occupy because it's just basically a 24 volt signal.
Yeah.
So your front end may be responsible for providing that signal to the unit.
Yeah,
Oh,
because what I was trying to figure is, remember how the first time I brought up, I was trying to use the Prodigy board to do my testing for the HVAC PMs, but I could never get that. I got everything else to work but the blower.
Right.
So maybe I still need to add that 24 volt, and it ain't gonna affect anything else if there's another wire hooked into the occupancy.
Well, either you have it there or you don't. But
Okay,
again,
that's the
at
question.
2:30, I believe maybe that might be a question you might want to have for
Ask
Jeff.
Jeff?
Yeah.
Okay, that's it.
I think for most of my clinics, we have a standardized DaVita thermostat. So all the new Lennoxes that we're putting in, so we have to jumper it.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm asking.
It's a mix, man. I mean, so if you pretty much what you're saying is, if you see thermostat wires coming up and there's something landed on the occupancy,
Yeah.
probably the thermostat's going to be commercial stack with an occupancy setting.
Coming from a reliable or whatever, right?
Exactly. But if it's some sort of non-commercial staff that doesn't even know if there's occupancy
you
or
need to
not,
jump it.
it won't even have a wire for that,
Right.
so it has no signal to tell you it's occupied.
And that
so you
won't-
just jumper it right across.
So there's either a wire there or it's not.
And if
Yeah.
the wire ain't there, the unit won't work at all?
Well, no, you won't get free cooling, okay?
Oh, okay.
So we actually have a one-page document we created for that OCP terminal,
Yeah.
where to jump it.
Mm-hmm.
That's specific for you guys that we can pull up later too. It's again where all those resources are.
Yeah.
The BMS team is kind of
Nice.
going through that.
Yep. Now, on MSAV settings, again, multi-stager volume, okay? Fan speeds can be altered by adjusting the CFM ranges for heating, cooling, ventilation modes, okay? So, from the main menu, there's those bold capital print lines again, followed by arrows, okay? So again, those are directions to a destination in the program. So in settings, RTU, options, blower, you have the ability to select your blower speeds for heating and cooling, okay? This becomes vital essentially when you're trying to meet air balance or increase the comfortability of any one particular unit and or zone, okay? Humiditrol. So again, that is the first character in the configuration ID. And this slide here is kind of just basically a synopsis and explanation of how Humiditrol works. So, the purpose of the condenser is to do what? Or project heat. Perfect, okay? Obviously, our compressor is the heart of our system, creating the pressure differentials needed to pump the refrigerant through the entire system, right? Expansion valve, what's the purpose of that?
Regulation.
Regulate pressure.
Change the state of the refrigerant
Look at the
from
gas.
liquid to a gas, okay? When we change the state of the refrigerant, we're also changing its pressure. So it's no longer a subcool, high-pressure gas, or, excuse me, liquid, it becomes a what?
Low temperature, low pressure, yeah.
Gas, right? And when it enters into the evaporator, what are we doing at the evaporator?
Changing.
If we're rejecting heat,
You're absorbing.
what's,
Absorbing it.
we're absorbing heat, exactly. Now, the purpose and the magic behind the humiditrol coil is, after we have performed a call for cooling, and we have satisfied the temperature set point in the space, in the event humidity is still too high, the compressor will continue to run, opening a hot gas bypass valve, pumping hot gas into the coil, providing neutral, keyword, neutralized air into the space, further drying the air out. That is the whole magic behind dehumidification or reheat coil.
Quick question. How could it condense moisture out of the air if it's not creating a temperature difference?
So the idea here is that ultimately enough by utilizing the hot gas off the compressor, what is the state of the refrigerant as it goes into this coil? It's a mixture of both gas and liquid, right? So because we're not running the evaporator and we're running the fan, okay, we are in fact drying the air out by removing and absorbing the moisture gained in this particular coil. So the idea is that, again, is that we're at the condensing dew point at which air is going to condense.
Oh, just so you're barely getting.
Yes,
to the dew point.
exactly.
Okay.
So again, the key term is neutralized air. We're not heating anything up,
Yeah.
okay? But we are pulling the moisture out of the air because we're basically at dew point. Follow me?
Yep.
Now, where this all then becomes complicated is if there's another call for cooling, this coil closes, and then we re-begin the refrigeration process again. You will not have dehumidification and cooling going on at the same time because it defeats
The purpose.
the purpose.
Yeah.
And starts fighting each other.
That's always been a problem with humidifiers.
Right. And again, the idea is, and you just hit the nail on the head, the mode of cooling itself is what? Dehumidification,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Heat it up.
Or
Need humidity.
moving heat from where it's not wanted and putting it where it's little to no concern.
There you go. Okay?
Refrigeration.
Now, where this really gets complex
Awesome.
is when you have multi-circuits.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Ha.
Lunchtime.
Notice,
Parallel series.
yeah, notice
Yeah.
the difference in the coils, okay?
Wow.
And essentially on some units, you may have more than one evaporator coil, not necessarily in a stack configuration, but offset from each other, so there's layers, right? So that really gets interesting essentially when you get into the higher tonnages,
Yeah, Westlake's got the.
What tonnage is? Oh, 7.5.
7.5 and above.
Those two big ones, yeah. Those two big ones at Westlake.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
Questions on humiditrol?
Normally we won't have any humidifier.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Or maybe you might, I don't know. You know, again, like I said, we're working with you guys on standardizing, you know, a template of a unit that meets all of your needs, right?
Real wood floors, maybe.
That might not necessarily be a bad thing, but I will tell you, in certain applications with certain materials, the drier the air is, the more prolonged life essentially that material may last. Obviously, there's all these studies that they've done about how moisture in a room or in a building or in whatever application is not necessarily a good thing. Mold, legionnaires, building syndrome, you know, ventilation, makeup air, all play a part, you know. And where it becomes very vital and very crucial, obviously, is in hospital applications where, again, they keep it cold on purpose for a reason. And that's to prevent spread of, you know, bacteria and viruses and whatnot, okay? when you're in that application, it becomes so complex, okay? And I know that even in your application, where again, people are getting transfusions and whatnot, we can't exactly be contaminating the air at all that bad either, you know?
Well, one thing we're hearing from Autumn, again, your guys' project manager that reports to Dave, that installs the units for us, she's saying like if you're replacing a carrier, like 5-ton unit or something, and it's just kind of the stock, basic kind of core and shell unit, no bells and whistles, that the Energins unit weighs a lot more than that unit. And so our contractors are requiring like an engineering study, and maybe those roofs aren't kind of, you know, load tested to a piece of equipment that heavy. So it's something we still kind of need to work through, but hard to replace that hefty of a unit when there's something so basic in place without going through some engineering changes. So
That makes sense.
Thanks for everything.
This is
Some of the
something
like carrier cube units, if you're familiar with those,
Yeah.
really kind of, you know, I'm from Arizona, those go on houses. And even when you look at the carrier brochure, it shows it's sitting in somebody's living room. So it's really not a commercial grade unit. But you know, even driving around here, I saw some on rooftops around town. And yeah, if you go to a unit that those don't have dehumidification, go to an Energins with hinge panels and so on versus that unit, there will be weight differences on those. So, and obviously you're gonna need a adapter too. So kind of a funny curb adapter, big one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Around 100%.
Yeah, we're like,
Was
it's like 6 feet in the air, and you're right, I don't know,
I
work
don't
on
know.
it.
Usually the hospitals don't like us messing with their systems.
Supposed to get it to the other end.
But it makes sense.
All right, so obviously we talked about what humiditrol is and what dehumidification is, but obviously what we need in order for that to work is obviously we need a humidistat essentially in the space. Now, it's very possible that, again, whatever standardized template you guys do work with us on, you may or may not choose this particular option, or you may have a stat that will have that built in. Obviously, as a manufacturer, we would love for you to use what we recommend, but it doesn't mean you have to, right? All we're trying to impress upon you here in this particular slide is obviously the wiring arrangement for a humidistat, okay, and where you would land it there on the board, okay? So obviously, through rectification, obviously, because again, we're relying on an analog signal, okay? We have to power up the sensor, obviously, right? And through rectification, we're gonna convert that 24-volt AC signal to a 0 to 10-volt DC signal, which translates as scale back to the unit, and depending on how you program the unit, based upon that signal strength, okay, will be how often you will be utilizing humiditrol or whatnot. Or you may just have basically a set point built into the humidistat, and basically when you go over that set point, you send 10 volts DC. Boom. You know what I mean? So it all depends on how you set it up, and again, that's probably something that, you know, Jeff would probably set up with you guys, and he would do from the front end, right?
Yeah, part of the reason this is in here is because that 17M50 sensor, you'll probably find some of those sitting in the blower section of some units. They get shipped and never installed. And typically where we ship those is, yeah, it's in the blower section. And they're in boxes yet and never been installed. And humiditrol will not work without that sensor. So, there's no display on that. It's 7.
No, it's just a humidity sensor, yeah.
But I didn't realize you got to run the 24 volts to it.
Yeah,
So
gotta power it
regular
up.
stat wire, you got to be the twisted pair.
That's
going
very
back.
good. So our recommendation is, again, we don't want any wire runs over 150 feet, and the gauge of wire that we recommend is 20, okay?
Twisted pair.
And according to this here twisted pair, overall shielded, so.
Both
there's-
ways.
Yeah, both ways, and there's the aluminum foil there.
I think it works without.
It will, but it's subject now to interference if you don't do shielded cable.
Yeah.
I see.
But the
makes
contractor
sense.
misses that too, so.
150 feet.
They never pull wire.
We can get that from Granger, right?
Belden wire?
Shielded wire?
Yeah. Belden wire is probably the most universally recognized low voltage wire manufacturer in the world, okay? And like Belimo, everyone loves Belimo, there are other manufacturers that actually make parts, okay? But Belimo would have you believing they are the greatest ever, and don't think of anybody else, okay? Bells and wires the same way, okay? So, you know, we take that into consideration and we kind of inputted their name into our slides, you know what I mean?
Nice.
But they're not the only manufacturer of shielded cable, guys, right?
As long as it's 20 years.
Yeah. And again, here's another look essentially at that humidity sensor wiring. Yeah.
Can I just have a pick another one?
Oh, sure, my bad.
That'd be
There you go.
There you go.
Thank you, sir.
Got it?
Yep.
Okay.
Hey, excuse me, guys, I'm gonna take 1 minute real quick, 'cause we gotta make a phone call.